Okay, so now that you've watched the first video on finding the volume of spheres and then combinations of solids, right? Let's do some examples here. We're going to be working backwards, okay? And so let's take a look at this. So find the volume of a sphere which has a surface area of 49 pi. Okay, so the key is when you're doing this, you think about what's given to you, right? So the surface area is given. It says the surface area right here. And let me grab my handy dandy highlighter for myself. Okay. And it's not here. So, oh, there it is, right in front of my face. Okay. So the surface area of 49 square meters. Okay. So let's write there. No, 49 pi square meters. Okay. So, and it's a sphere, and that's also worth noting. So I'm going to highlight that as well. Okay, it's a sphere and a surface area. So I have to think about, okay, what formula is this going to use then? Right? And so the surface area formula is 4 pi r squared. Okay. Okay. So instead of having a radius and figuring out what the surface area is, we're just working backwards. So the surface area is this given. Right, I'll plug that right in for ourselves. Okay. Now let's solve for r. Right. So that was our given. Okay. And our next step is let's solve for r. Okay. Let's see, how am I going to get r all by itself? How about I divide both sides by pi? I'll do that first. That seems like the easiest thing. Okay. Then how about I divide by 4? I'm going to leave it as a fraction. Right? This can be easier for our next step. Because now I'm going to take the square root. And remember, from taking square roots of fractions, if they're both perfect squares, you can just take the square root of the top or the square root of the bottom. If you don't remember that, that's okay. You could have just put it into your calculator, and your calculator would have given you the same thing of 7/2 or 3.5. Whatever. Okay? So we solve for r. We now have our radius. Okay? So when we're done, right, and I'm going to put a little star next to this, use a different color, don't forget to solve for the ask. Okay? When I say the ask, I mean what the problem asks you for. Yes, we have a radius. We've done something, so sometimes people are just like, okay, I've got an answer, I'm done. But that's not what it's asked for. It asks for the volume. So I have to make sure I find the volume for myself. My volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, I'll plug in the radius and cubed. And so, you know, you might be saying, I need a calculator for this one, and that's great. Use the calculator if you need it. So if you did, you'd be 3.5 to the third. Okay, which is 42.875. I'm going to multiply it by 4, then divide by 3. So I get 57.1, and it looks like 6 repeating. Okay. Okay, you can see there's a whole bunch of 6's there. Yes, the last number is rounded off to a 7, right? But that's because the calculator is rounding. So this is just a 6 repeating there. Okay, and I'll put the pi there. Oh, and it's in meters, volume is cubic meters. So there's my final answer for myself. Okay? So, find the surface area of a sphere with a volume of 2304 pi cubic meters. Okay. So, the given information is that I am given a volume, and it's a sphere. Okay? So, that volume is 2304, and we find the volume by doing 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay. I look at this, I can see the pi's cancel first, so I'll get rid of that. To cancel out the 4/3, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/4. Okay? And while you can do this in your calculator, right, no matter what, you should basically take 2304, divide by 4 first, and then times it by 3. Right, that's the easiest way. So 1728 equals r cubed. Okay, so we need to think of a number that when cubed is going to give us 1728. So when we're doing this, right, we can use the cube root button. And you know, if you're using your phone as a calculator, right, let me show you where that's going to be so you can see it. Okay, right, you have to take your phone and you have to turn it sideways. Okay, and you can see the cube root button is right here, right there is the cube root. And what's that going to do? It's going to say what number cubed there. Okay, this is, if you're not using your phone and using a regular calculator, you should have that button right there, that cube root button. Okay, depending on the version, but I think everybody's got a version that has that right there. Okay, and sometimes, like if you're doing it, it may not be like right there, it might be above it, so you might, so like on my calculator you can see the square root buttons above the squared, so you might have to use these little symbols that are above it. Okay, right, so you might have to use that second button before you get to that cube root. Okay, anyway, the point is that's how you get it. So I'm going to use this calculator, 1728. I'll hit the cube root button. It's 12. Okay, because I'm taking the cube root of 1728 and the cube root of, right, I'm undoing the r cubed. That's going to give me 12. Okay, that's my radius there. Okay, and you know, if you don't have a calculator for this, you can just use an internet search and, you know, use the internet calculator, and it can do that as well. Okay, so we have the radius. Have we solved for the ask? It's not asking for radius, it's asking for surface area. So I'm going to find the surface area, and it's a sphere, so it's 4 pi r cubed. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'll do 12 cubed. And that's going to give me 6,912 pi, and that's square meters. Okay. So in these ones, this is the kind of thing that's in an open response question if you're taking the MCAS next year, right? Or these are the kind of questions that you're asked a lot as SAT problems, right? They ask you to do a couple different things there and use all the formulas. And both of those are going to give you all the formulas. So you don't need to memorize the formulas. You just need to focus on the process here. Okay. Now let's see. Let me do another example. Let me do example 5 here. A cone that has a volume of 50 pi and a height of 6. Okay, so cone, I draw it out. Okay, height of 6. Okay, and the volume is 50 pi. Okay. So it says, what's that? Oh, what's the radius? Well, volume of a cone is area of the base times height divided by 3. Okay, so, and I know what the height is, so I can plug that in as well. So I can have 50 pi equals area of the base times 6 divided by 3. Okay, well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 50 pi equals twice the base. Well, if I divide by 2, 50 divided by 2 is 25. Okay. So that means the circle has an area of 25 pi. Okay. Right, because there's a circle on the bottom. Well, I know how to find the area of a circle. Area of a circle is pi r squared. So that means the radius must be 5. 5 squared gives me 25. And you will always have these ones, right, that come out to nice numbers, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay? I'll put that right on here. Okay? What's the slant height of the cone? Well, we've done that before, so we can find the slant height. Okay, using that triangle that we have there. Okay, we can see that is a 6 is the height, 5 is the radius. Okay, I'll use Pythagorean theorem. So there's my slant height. I get 25 plus 36 is 61. The square root of that. That can't reduce, so my slant height is just the square root of 61. No units, so there's my. So I'm done. What's the lateral surface area of this cone? Okay, so we look back and we find our lateral surface area, right? LSA of a cone. Remember, if I unroll it, it looks like a big triangle. That's just going to be the circumference times the slant height and half of that. Oops. Okay, so 1/2 the circumference of the circle. Well, if the radius is 5, my circumference is 10 pi. And my slant height was root 61. So 5 pi root 61 is my LSA. So LSAs can be kind of messy for this one. It happens, right? Okay, but you know, the only thing that's really new here is that at the beginning, right, we had to work backwards to get the radius. But after that, this is just like we did last week. Just like we did last week, right? You have the radius, you start plugging in, and you get those measurements that are missing. Okay? And these other ones, the next page is basically the same exact thing, right? You're going to do the same. It just has different information given to you for each one, right? So you can just give those a shot, right? Try those. Take a look at your answers, at the answers online to make sure you did it right.